To go.
Okay. It is 6 o'clock. I think everyone is here. Call to order the January 12th meeting of the Bethlehem Public Library Board. We'll start by going around the room and introducing ourselves. I'm Caroline Brancatella, President.
Jeff Kirkpatrick, Library Director.
Mark Kissinger, I'm the trustee. I'm on the UHLS.
Michelle Walsh, Trustee.
Gail Sacco, trustee. Jill Adams, trustee. Laura DeBetta, secretary.
Sarah Patterson, Vice President.
Sherry Whiting, board treasurer.
Happy to have our first board meeting of 2026. Our next item will be public participation. As we do at every meeting, Sarah will read a statement before anyone begins their public participation.
Beginning and ending each library board meeting with public participation is an opportunity for community members to express their thoughts on library operations to the board. Because the purpose of the monthly meeting is to conduct board business, it is not a time for back and forth debate with members of the board. If specific questions are presented during public participation and the relevant information is readily available, the board will make an effort to address the question in the course of the meeting. Otherwise, community members may follow up on any questions by directly contacting the library director or the board via email or speaking to them after the meeting. We will advertise organized opportunities to speak directly with board members. A reminder that all library policies apply at board meetings, including the patron conduct policy and the harassment policy.
Do we have any public participation tonight? Any online, Jeff?
Nothing.
Okay. Then we will move on to the review of the previous meeting's minutes. Anyone have any questions, concerns, edits?
I'll make a motion to accept the previous meeting's minutes.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Just passed. Sherry, we will move on to the financial / treasurer's report.
Okay, as of December 31st, we're halfway through the year. Our overall expenses are tracking on budget. Salaries and benefits are over by a little bit, but that'll be smoothed out as the year progresses because we paid the retirement bill in full in November. And that's a fairly sizable piece of salaries and benefits. Gas and electric is over budget by about 11%. We expect health insurance to be over budget as we begin to pay the 2026 rates. So we'll see how we end up the year. I do expect to have some lines that are going to be over budget. Hopefully there'll be some that are under budget to offset it.
The health insurance.
For our largest plan, CDPHP plan, it was over 20%. It's 20 and 20%. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
And that kind of, I think, tails into we have under future business, our budget update, as we will get a draft of next year's budget at the next meeting. I think we're teeing up things where we're seeing trends. And Jeff, keep me honest here. You know, other good news is that in our union contract is that the COLAs that were negotiated, this is a lower year in terms of percentage coming up.
correct.
So that will be,
Yeah.
a little bit more manageable. But we can talk any more about concerns or other trends when we get down there. Yeah.
I just did have a question about the gas and electric. Was that something that was a surprise? Like, did something happen nationally that made gas and electric more expensive than we thought it would be? I don't know.
I don't really know.
Yeah, so the rates are higher. The
The rates are
higher, and that's
It's just I've been hearing that even from
Yeah.
friends and
Yes.
family, that
Yes.
suddenly electric
Right.
bills are going up and, okay, yeah.
there's a lot of rampant speculation. I don't want to do it here about
Right.
what the ultimate cause of all of that is, but I think probably there's a little bit of truth in all of that stuff. There's probably, it's like everything, it's multi-factor.
And actually, we reduced the gas and electric budget a little bit for this year because we had been under budget for the last few years.
Well, of course, right?
You know, so you do that.
That's the reason.
That's right.
Yes,
It's our fault.
poor budgeting.
But I don't think the library is alone in that.
No.
I think that has been both residential and commercially has been an issue for it.
I don't know if anybody has any questions about the actual reports, income and expenses and.
I'm just curious with what I'm reading in the papers about the markets. I know that we are limited in what we can invest in.
Right.
I don't really understand, we made a change to another bank. What are our investments? Are they the same? Per dollar invested, it's guaranteed a dollar, I'm trying to remember about.
The new program that we're in, invests the cash that we have in multiple banks to a maximum of $250,000. So all of our, investments are insured. So we have about, what is it, about 3 million in metropolitan?
About 3 point.
Something like that. So that's split up among however many banks, divide by 250,000. Those funds are split up among a variety of banks so that all of our cash invested in Metropolitan is insured. By
Is it still
FDIC.
CDs and treasuries?
Those are not CDs, that's just cash invested in Metropolitan Bank, and their rate is really good. It's actually a little bit higher than or pretty comparable to a CD rate or a treasury bill rate. Besides that, we also have about $500,000 in a treasury bill. That's locked in. We just purchased a new treasury bill at the end of November, I think, right, or early December.
First week of December.
Yeah.
And with Metropolitan, all of that money, the 250,000 are in different accounts, but they're not tied necessarily to the stock market. It's like different savings.
I guess that's my question.
So-
Every time I pick up the paper, there's another article about the volatility of the market.
Yeah, it's not tied to any particular market. It's invested in a variety of savings and loan banks.
So we're still.
So
okay.
it's all savings and, yeah, right.
Thank you.
And we get a much better rate than we do with TD Bank and our money market account.
I knew that. As I said, it's just every time I open the paper, there's another article. So I just wanted to make sure. So
Yeah.
it's good to know.
Yeah. And the other thing that's really good about that investment is it's very flexible. We can take out money, if we need money tomorrow, we can easily transfer it. It's just a wire a transfer to our bank. We're not locked in.
It's one of the allowable investments by the New York State Comptroller that protects interest, protects principal. Trying to get a little bit more interest than you can out of a money market, but protect the principal, which we are required to do. Understand? I just want to. That's not for your benefit necessarily as for the public.
Well, yeah, that's what I heard Shari say, is that our money is still protected. The money that we have invested is still protected. The interest we get on that money may vary, but the money that we invest is still, according to New York State law, protected.
Right. Any other questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the financial report.
Laura, second. Michelle, second.
Okay.
All those in favor? Motion passes. Jeff, personnel report.
I have requests for you. So we have had 2 retirement and a resignation. We have a full-time library clerk and a part-time library clerk, and I would like to refill those positions for the circulation desk, the circulation department. So that's what I'm here asking today.
Questions, concerns? Make a motion to pass the personnel report for requests.
So moved.
All those in favor? Jeff is hiring a part-time library clerk And a full-time library clerk.
Awesome.
Hey, on to the director's report, Jeff.
Moving through here, this is great. Okay, so we'll do boiler project update further down. I don't want to burn the friends of the library and their notice, but they did purchase the maintenance staff as a thank you to them, a gear dryer. I don't know if you've seen those, but that's here and they absolutely love it. So more on that from the friends of the library. There'll be a picture in their newsletter and all that.
A dryer for boots.
It is, they hang boots, hang the gloves on that, because they do a lot of, when they're doing the outside work and the snow clearing, everything gets wet, so. They were trying to come up with something that would say, thank you, and let the maintenance know how much they were appreciated by the Friends of the Library, because they do a lot of work with the Friends about the book sale, and so that is here and very much appreciated by the maintenance staff. Youth services is up today. We will continue to evaluate the space and the variety of toys, as well as the space in the children's room. There are some exciting changes on the way, but just so all of you are aware, we tracked the use of the toys and people who were using the play space throughout the month of December, which is already a fairly slow month. Several days of the month, more than 100 people a day are in the toy area specifically playing with the toys. So that could be a caregiver and a child, or multiple children. But they tracked that for the whole month. And so in an already slow month, average day about 64 or 65 was an average day for the number of people using that space, and several days above 100 people using that space. So it really does get it on as far as space is concerned. So we'll be rearranging some of the collections, trying to open up a little bit more space. Just want you all to be aware of that. That's going to be coming this spring. So lots of great programs. Continue to point out the early literacy programs again, even in the month of December. High attendance at those at the programs. Saturday story time and the PJ story time, which is in the evening for families. Just a little bit of a thing I think is a really good idea, where you've all heard of, we had a rubber ducky club here at our library. There was the 1,000 books before kindergarten. They're moving towards a more qualitative, instructing parents about integrating reading into every day and integrating that into the story time. So I think I'm really excited about that. So we'll continue to do that, just about how we can foster early literacy. It's not just, hey, make sure you looked at a bunch of books, which is great, but also, are you getting out of that experience? Are parents being aware and conscious about how they're reading? What are those pre-literacy skills that kids need in order to be ready to go to school? So that, lots of awesome programs. You can read all about them here. I heard a lot about the Pokemon Adventure, which went up. There was a craft and then a session, but they were so popular, they left the Pokemon hunt up around in the children's room for a whole other week, and lots of people got to participate, even if they weren't able to come to the program itself. As far as adult services, I just want to point out, we got a very nice letter from a patron about interlibrary loan. So interlibrary loan is a service where we get books and send books, but we get books who are outside of our Hudson library system, so we can get essentially everything. And this is just one of the great things that libraries do. Academic libraries, special libraries, other public libraries, we all work cooperatively to ensure that we can get the materials that we need sent to us in lots of different ways. Upper Hudson is involved in loaning for us. But just let me take the time to send my sincerest thanks to you and the whole ILL staff here there at the library for the tremendous service you render. A big part of me would be utterly bereft without access to the books and articles you make possible for me to obtain this year. By my count, it was 29 books and 12 articles, materials I would otherwise have little chance of seeing. Ken Burns was mistaken. National parks are only the country's second best idea. Its best was and will always be the public library. So, yay, I appreciated that, and I wanted to put that in there for everybody to see.
I just had a question. So I've used an interlibrary loan myself before, but I went to the information desk
Yes.
to get that information. How do people access interlibrary items? Do they do it via you have to come here?
Yeah, well, you can do it on the internet. There's a form that we have on the website. You can absolutely walk right up to the desk, and the librarians will help you walk you through it. That's what they're there for, to teach you how to do that. But there's also a form on the website for people who are more familiar. They can fill out that form in the citation of the work they're looking for, it was an article or a book, fill that out and send it electronically to the librarians. They can get it electronically and they'll search for it.
Is there anywhere on our website that says, hey, if you can't find what you're looking for, you could also look for it this way? Like, I do wonder how
Yeah,
many
there
regular users of the library realize that they could search outside of our card catalog.
Let me just take a note on that. ILL. Yeah, like don't see the book you see you need. I mean, it's interesting, they do that in the e-catalog. They do that right there. If you don't have it in there, it says, oh, put a request in, put a request to library in there if it's there. All right, I'll
Yeah,
talk
I'm
about it.
just,
That's a
I'm
good
There
really
is a-
curious, yeah.
There is a bullet for interlibrary loan.
But I understand that that's jargony.
That's very
So
targeted.
it's a bullet.
If you go to
Okay.
borrow, but you're right, it's not as simple as, hey, did you find something?
Researching the catalog, I mean, the catalog it's through Upper Hudson, so we have to talk about that a little bit, but it's not a terrible idea to say, oh, couldn't
Yeah.
find what you're looking
Well,
for.
and I would think most people use this venue or whatever you would call it, are academics, or they're doing research, or.
It's interesting
It's
because
not-
if they're actually academics, they shouldn't be coming to us. In fact, we actually encourage them to use, because there's a whole interlibrary loan process that happens and can actually be even faster through academic institutions. That's a big part of what they do all the time. For us, we have researchers, but other people who are just curious or interested or want to complete a series of books that aren't available in any other way. So it's any or all of that. So they are, could be a local author who doesn't have an affiliation with the university. So there are quite a variety of people who are trying to use that. We can't get everything, but the librarians do a really good job of getting them. So,
I've used it to get legal articles that might be
Yeah.
with the state library, not us.
so it's there. It's a good service, and it is. I think it is less known, and unfortunately, interlibrary loan is a very librarian-y term, so it doesn't instantly spring to mind until if we can get a hold of you, then we can explain it. But,
Yeah.
So that's when we do talk about it, but it's not a bad idea to try to put that someplace else. It's a good thought. So. Anyway, a little Sunday music started up. Thanks, sponsored by the Friends of the Library. So, big attendance at the Archstand Quartet. Competitive puzzling, as you can see here from the picture, very popular. Puzzling continues to be an increasingly popular activity. It's having a moment. It makes me very happy. So, it's like picking out children to talk about which program. Anyway, I do want to mention the virtual author talks, which is a series available on the website, and those are recorded and available for viewing later. So those are the statistics on those, and they are there. I do want to mention that we have a new catalog, so that launched right at the beginning of the year on 1/1. If you've had a chance to look at it, either we had the app for a while, and then the new catalog launched on the web. It's both on our machines here in the building and on our website. So it's a catalog. It does what it needs to do. It helps you find the books that you need, but it will look a little bit differently. And we have a custom landing page for our library. It was developed by Phil and his work on the other IT staff working with Upper Hudson. We were able to have our own Bethlehem branded interface that looks a little bit more like our website. But still continues to integrate with the full catalog from across the system. So that's nice. Let me see. A nice little statistic that I like. So we added the New York Times, or sorry, we already have the New York Times. We added the Wall Street Journal, Upper Hudson, through their state grant, added the Wall Street Journal. So, we have several newspapers available. We've got the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Times Union available, full text and online. We launched it as soon as it became available. Of the 155 times in the first couple days that it was accessed, 131 of those were Bethlehem patrons. So
And I have to say, I canceled my Wall Street Journal subscription. $500 a year, so it's a $500 a year savings, with $40 a month.
So thank you to Upper Hudson Library, thank you to Bethlehem Public Library, awesome. But thank you to the Upper Hudson Library System, and then there are grants that come from the state. So when we're down talking to our legislators and talking about the money that goes from the state to support the systems, this is one of the services that comes along with the courier delivery and our catalog and all the other things. This is one of the services that comes from the state money.
I also just want to mention, in terms of balance of information, that libraries are so important to give. The New York Times and the Wall Street Journal balance each other. So someone who would like can get a balanced view on something that is happening, or something something that in quotation marks. But the bias balances each other off. So in terms of trying to help people be educated, it is a really good addition.
Well, and this money, much of this money has for the past decade or so gone to e-books, e-audiobooks, e-content that was book material. And a couple of years ago, we and they on the Central Library Committee decided to add the New York Times to that to try to say, the increasing value of newspapers as well. And based on the success of the New York Times, they expanded that again. Now it's a zero-sum game with that money that comes from the state. So there's a little bit more money that goes to the e-newspapers. There's a little less money that goes to the e-books, and it's just a reality. But it is I think, a very reasonable price for both of those for considering its access across the whole system. I understand there's a little bit of friction. You have to sign up every couple of days and get your account, but it is a great service. So I wanted to highlight that here. And just as I've always known, the Bethlehem patrons are very interested. They are aware of library services and they take advantage of library services. And this is not an unusual story for it to be heavily used by Bethlehem. So had some good outreach. We did, Dan did the holiday parade, had a good time with that. It's a nice short parade. So you just take the van down. Next year, he's gonna have a float, try to do a little bit more of a library themed float because it is a fun parade. And then we did first night, here's a picture of me with Polly from the Friends down there at Bethlehem first night. It was a cold one this year, but overall attendance was down from our count, maybe about a third or so, because last year was so warm. It was beautiful last year. So attendance was down, but they do really do a good fireworks display. And we were down there and had lots of engaging interactions with our patrons. And we hand out noisemakers, which some people find ironic that the library hands out noisemakers at the library. So it's fun. And then just watch for the seat library. It's coming back in March. So ready. And then just to make everybody aware, Library Advocacy Day will be held on, speaking of state funds, Library Advocacy Day will be held on Tuesday, February 3rd. If you are interested in attending, please let me know. There will be a sign-up sheet. And as soon as I know the timing of the meetings with our representatives, I will let you know as I have the information for those of you who are willing and able to attend.
The UV flashlights, will you explain that?
Yeah, it's just we have a flashlight that we use for the staff. It helps us identify stains on books that might not be visible to the naked eye, and can help us identify when we need to might need to take a book out of circulation. Also helps with bed bug identification sometimes if you have markings on there, because it's blood, that we can use that. It was something that was recommended for us to have, so we've got it.
I didn't see it when you were scrolling, but I know it's in there somewhere. I heard good things about the program where you scanned in photos and then you were able
Yes.
to upload it to more permanent storage. And so I was just wondering, are we gonna do that program again? And yes?
Yes.
Okay, great. And then as an aside, if a patron wants to have a program repeated, do they just put in a request?
There's a request, there's a suggestion box at the desk. There's an email, the information desk. You can email the director, you can email the trustees. There's any of those places. We're not that big, and it'll get back any of our contact forms on the web. We'll get back and we can, and it's good. We want to hear that, right? So we'll base it on attendance, and that was a well-received program. So I think based on that, we would repeat it. And I know that, I say personal digital archives. So how people manage their online history, their personal online history, is becoming a big deal, because if you lock everything up and it's attached to your Google account, nobody has attached to no one has access to your Google account. What happens to all those things, right? And how do we manage it when taking a picture is so simple? Snap, 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 snap. You don't need them all. So it both caring for the ones that you want, how to display them, how do we save them, how do we organize them? This is becoming an increasingly important.
Jeff, are any of those programs recorded or are they virtual?
I
I wanted to.
don't know the answer to that question, but I'll find out.
Okay.
Yeah. I know it's not recorded, but
Okay. So in my pursuit of people who don't make it to the library building, it would be nice if there was a different way they could get at. Like you know, a grandma who's babysitting and a child that's having all the grandmas. Just comes to my mind.
Just not gonna let examples.
Yeah.
It's
So
good.
I had two patrons that approached me separately about a potential program, potential private program that they should interject.
Yep.
About AI. Artificial intelligence, like basics.
Yep.
And kind of like the 101 plus the 201, you know, like a little bit more on what is it? Why is it controversial? You know, all the questions around it. I think people are flailing out there with trying to figure out.
They are, and Gail and I had a lot of conversations about AI.
Yeah.
We've had this in the hopper for a little bit. We did a major training at our staff to Monday that just
Yeah.
happened in December
Oh, yeah.
on AI. So
Great.
we're making sure we have our librarians up to speed because we tend not to use it as much, I think, as a lot of other businesses and places tend to use it a lot in the library. We just tend to not that much.
Yeah.
So we're making sure that we're up to speed on it so that we can talk cogently about it and know who we should be bringing in, talk to the folks. It's a good idea. Yes, the
Yeah,
answer
it's
is.
kind of like, you
it's
know,
coming. Yeah.
AI for the 65 plus.
I got it.
There is a local expert that I've been reading, we can talk about. He teaches at RPI and he's heavily
Fantastic.
involved.
Cool.
Are you thinking like how to identify AI? Like, for example, someone sent me something today.
Yeah.
And this wasn't the point of why they sent it to me. I was like, oh, but it's also clearly written by AI. It's
Yeah.
not how this person talks or writes. And there's this particular style, but like I've caught on to it. Because I see Facebook posts all the time, like there's a pattern to it. So like, to me,
That's
it would
one
be
thing.
like showing like people how to identify not just pictures, which is hugely problematic and
Right.
going to be impossible pretty soon,
Right.
but articles, like stories, like how to, like, they're not real half the time, or they're at least heavily,
What I hear people talking to us a lot about is that, oh, I don't use AI. But I'm like, every time you're doing a Google search, the default search, the top search is an AI search. So don't tell me you're not. I mean, if you don't Google at all, I suppose, then maybe not. But it's, you know, people say, oh, well, it just puts the answer right up there. And then the links are down below. When you used to get a bunch of links, now you get a little summary. That summary is an absolutely generative AI derived summary, which
to
can,
put minus AI and it won't.
In your search.
yes, yeah. Mine is AI, exactly, right, so, but it's very difficult tool, and so that's some of what our training was about, and I think it's, yes, the answer is, yeah.
Okay.
One
Yeah.
thing you can do is a spot check, a factual spot check. So if you're looking for. There's a story about somebody who's writing a paper, they got two resources, one from Harvard Business School, one from Stanford Business School. That they used, and both of them were fake, because AI is basically an algorithm that grabs whatever it sees. If you do something with AI, if you do a spot check outside of AI, so if it's an article on, I don't know, a movie star, and you want to verify where they were born, if you go and do check IMDb, the Internet Movie Database, you can verify that some of the facts are coming accurately. It's just a quick way to take a look.
Remember when everybody was worried about Wikipedia?
Well, I'm still worried about.
I know. So as far as stats are concerned, down a little bit on our circulation, we were closed early and closed a couple days, which always, when I see a small percentage change like that, that's exactly what that's attributable to. Some interesting ebook use actually down. Now that's not going to be related to us being closed or not closed, but that's where I'm talking about the stabilization of e-reading with the I, but continued increases in e-audiobook use. And we had, for last month, total e-audiobook use exceeded ebook use. And I don't imagine it's ever going back. Like that, those numbers are, you know, ebook use is headed this way, kind of flattish, up a little bit, but the e-audio use continues to be really quite aggressively increasing. So that's interesting for me.
What about the visits to the homepage?
Yeah, I caution about this particular statistic. We're required to keep it. It is tracked automatically through our WordPress page, but so many of those hits are bots.
Yeah.
I have literally no idea month to month. I wish I could tell you there was some rhyme or reason, but I've been watching that number for a long time. We record it because we're required to report it to the state. But if you ask me of all the numbers on this report, which I have the least confidence in, that one is it. I really don't understand the hits, and I know a lot of those are automated, and why in particular month it would just. I don't know, thoughts, Phil? I don't know.
It's probably a Google bot.
Yeah.
Trying to keep everything updated.
Yeah, I just, but I haven't noticed a change, like we make a lot of changes on the website, then maybe it would be higher the next month. No, it doesn't seem to be, doesn't seem to follow that, so I don't know. Wireless use was down, I think. A lot of outside wireless use again. It was cold this month.
The weather.
Don't want to be out at Elm Park. Okay, that's it. If there's other questions, happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, UHLS report, anything to tell us?
No December meeting and the meeting is Wednesday, so I have nothing to tell you.
That brings us on to Jill and the Friends report. Anything friends would like the board to know?
I went to the December meeting where they had board elections. There was one officer change, Holly Hartman stepping down from being one of the officers of the board. And they had a little surprise party for her and have now deemed her Director Emerita because of her long-term service to the library in many roles. She's going to continue on the board, but just not as an officer anymore. Michelle was there, which was nice. And we had cookies because there was a little bit of a party for Polly. She was surprised and we signed a card. That was lovely. So that was the main business, was reasserting who wants to be on the board and who the directors are. Was there something else? One staff member, I introduced the idea of us trying to generate ideas for the Borthwick property. And was sort of saying like, if you guys have ideas, let us know, because we're going to be working on this. Told them a little bit what our timeline was without the dates, because we just got the dates. So they seem interested and perhaps even excited about that. Correct, Bruce?
Right.
Right?
Yes, I'm paying attention. I'm just making sure. I want to pull up the date where we are having on Wednesday, February 25th. Cookies and coffee with this board, and we are also inviting the Friends of the Library Board. So that will be advertised to the public in a variety of ways, but I just want to say this here and that we are looking forward to the Friends joining us at that event.
Good. Anyways, one staff member did pose an idea that popped off the top of her head, which was maybe a yurt for a story time in the space. So I'll put that on the list. That's all.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, any questions before we move on to new business? Okay, the first one is the director's evaluation, which we do every year. And Gail and Sarah are on the committee that are handling that. And Gail, do you just want to give a brief update?
You go.
Yeah.
We have come up with a conversation, a review as opposed to an evaluation, because we love you, Jeff.
Oh.
You worked really hard for us, and we appreciate it. A review of the past year that includes some assessments and also some looks towards the future. And hopefully we're going to get that done within the next few weeks, next month, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a little bit of a different process than before, because previously I had I just want to make sure I'm doing what you let me know. If you need me to do anything, you tell me.
We will need you to do something, and we will.
I mean, typically in the past, you've sort of already
Yeah.
done, I think, what we're asking for. Like
Yeah.
you've kind of said, these are the things I think I did. These are the things I need to do. And we're just kind of moving to everybody, sort of doing what you've been doing.
Perfect.
This is
Okay.
what we think was most important last year. This is what we think is most important coming up.
I just want to make sure I'm doing what you need. So we look at this. You got it.
So there will be internal communications among the board when
Yes,
Yes.
we still.
When you're ready with that.
I think we still.
Yeah.
Great. Jeff, our boiler projects.
Okay, so the the old boiler is still trucking along, being the old boiler. The expectation is, I believe the parts are either have arrived or are scheduled to arrive. There's a lot of parts back there in the boiler room. Right now, we're scheduled to start next Monday. So that is, we are hoping for, it's January, it's not gonna be warm, but a warmer section would be good. And then it should be about a week that we're without boiler. So that everybody understands that getting the old one out and the new one in as much as possible, as much prep work as can be done ahead of time is being done. And and I'll let you know as soon as it starts, that part of the project starts, but it's just closer.
Okay. So we just wanted to say publicly, I know that many people have heard from Jeff and from the board and saw the story in the spotlight that there was an incident at the library last month where an individual had a medical emergency and the library staff, I mean, members of the public, but especially the library staff reacted very quickly. And I would like to think have helped this person at least make it out of the library alive. We don't have an update on that individual for a variety of reasons, but our understanding is that he is still with us and potentially on the road to recovery. But I just wanna publicly thank the members of the staff that were involved with that. Sylvia Taylor, who administered CPR and used, along with Jeff, the AED, and Frank S. and Aaron M., who were involved in communicating, just getting back, letting everyone know that something is happening, calling 911, saying to get the AED. And then, of course, a public plea that if you are an organization, if you have an opportunity to get an AED for your organization, or if you are at an organization that has one and they offer training, we as a library, based on this experience, encourage you to do so because it really is life-saving. Jeff,
Yeah.
did you want to add anything to that?
Just thank you and and thanks for the board for approving that purchase when we did it a couple of years ago. There's a lot of things a lot of factors that led to it being here and deployed, and the advice we got from our local officials about where to have it. We were just be behind the desk. No, it should be out and available for the public, and the training in particular in that moment. I know in a moment that is a little bit panicky, having the training, it gives you something to fall back on, and then, knowing a little bit what to do. The thing itself is an amazing piece of technology. Like I continue to be in awe of it and how just directly it communicates and tells you to do it. But I just, I encourage anybody who has a chance to see how one works there. When you go around in the community, you'll see these things are in lots of places. And I think having just a little bit of knowledge about how and when to deploy it, and knowing that you can't hurt somebody by putting it onto them, I think that just those seconds matter. And I think having that there, our Bethlehem EMS, it was amazing. They reacted incredibly quickly. We had a patron who was a doctor who happened to be walking in the hallway. Amazing. And if you're out there, please come in. I didn't get his name that day, so I feel terrible about that, but my brain was not on. That just have the training, have the AED, and I've already heard from another local library that said, "Oh, I've got one of these things in the library. It's in a box." I'm like, get that thing on the wall. Just make it happen. Get it done. So that's all.
Once you know to look for them, you will see them everywhere. Again, thanks to our community partners. Again, everyone reacted extremely quickly to this, and it really, I think, was a community and a staff effort.
Yeah.
And I hope we don't have to do it again anytime soon.
Right.
So thank you, Jeff, and to the staff. Okay. Any other new business before we move on to old business? And will probably be the longest conversation of the evening. Okay. Guys, it's a whiteboard event. So, first of all, we had discussed at the last meeting that, our plan was to today discuss everyone's ideas for the Borthwick property. And at the next meeting, decide what we would like to put forth for public consideration, input, understanding that we are still framing how exactly that is going to happen. I'm hoping to frame tonight's discussion is that we go around, each give our ideas for the Borthwick property, we'll write them down. I'm gonna guess that there's gonna be some overlap and potential consolidation of ideas. But before we go that way, just wanna make sure there's no one who has any points, concerns, other things that they would like to raise about the Borthwick property, about the process that we are moving forward with the Borthwick property before we go around and discuss ideas. So I just wanna open the floor to that first.
At some point, is this going to go to a building committee for discussion? Or is it going from the board to the public? Because it's part of the building.
I believe that the plan that we have set forth is that this will go from the board. These ideas then to the public, and that there will be a communication strategy involved in that.
I don't agree with that.
Okay,
I don't believe the board ever actually agreed to that process. Perhaps I'm wrong, Jeff, in
Well,
terms of the minutes, but I don't.
I
agree.
think that we were all on the building committee, right? Until
Yep.
just now. And so when we made the choices to take these steps as a board, that was also the building committee because the whole board was the building committee. Now we have a committee that's fewer people, but we had already made this sort of steps and decision and process before that transition.
We made the decision to take the building down. We didn't make the decision that a communications committee would decide a plan to bring it to the public, which is what it appears to me has happened. So I'm asking for clarification.
no, and I'm sensitive to that view, and please, everyone jump in. I believe that at the last meeting that we discussed, we set forth, the communications committee met prior to the last meeting. And the communications committee presented kind of the strategy that was discussed. And we asked for input from the board, and there was discussion. And although I agree there was not a formal vote, there was a consensus to move forward with the process that we are moving forward with tonight. So I do think that there was board consensus on this, but I
think there was, and to go a step back further, the communications committee didn't do this roguely. At the prior meeting, when we were at that meeting, and I don't remember what month it was, must have been November. That was when we had a lot of talk about how we were framing things and word choices, and at that meeting, the board said, okay, communications committee, you go come up with plan ideas. So I believe at the last two meetings, the whole board has continued to move this process forward in the way that we're doing it.
I'm not trying to diminish the communications plan. I don't think the plan itself is a bad idea. I'm trying to address the overall process and the idea that we are separating a piece of the library as a whole, which we're talking about as a service area, with some of the ideas that have come up, from taking a look at the overall building plan. So just to move it a little bit, if we talk about carpeting, we can't really talk about carpeting without talking about the overall library, the way the building is being used and the way we want to see the building used. I think the property is part of that. I just think that there needs to be a discussion about the Borthwick property after the building is demolished, in terms of how that piece of property fits in to the overall plan for our building.
well,
It's not separated out.
I would say to Sarah's point, from a building committee standpoint, I would say that we're trying to engage the entire board in this process. And we can certainly work in building elements, but I guess my question is that what would the building committee do that the board is not doing?
look at the property in relation to the actual library building and not as a separate piece of real estate that needs to be examined separately for a separate purpose.
I guess I thought we had made that decision months and months and months ago, that this was like, after the boiler, this was the second project we were gonna tackle. We were doing that because in many ways it is a standalone project and it has other reasons too, but that was part of it. And so I felt like that had, like, that decision was months ago.
And because
Sorry.
at least some of us feel very strongly that we need to have some kind of plan as, you know, when it's demolished. Because of what we heard from the community during the bond project about the Borthwick property in particular. So to me at least, it doesn't make sense to separate those out. While we're moving forward with the demolition, we also need to have some idea of what we're gonna do with that property so that we can communicate that to the public.
I feel like there was maybe a meeting that you weren't here, or at least maybe
I
you
was
weren't
at the
on.
last meeting, I was at the last meeting.
Because I feel like it was explicitly sort of said that we know this isn't the final plan.
Yeah.
That like, that the house needs to come down and we can't leave a gaping wound there. And so we're gonna at least put in like dirt and grass, but we can do something better for now. With the expectation that it's not going to be like an enormous building structure. So that later, when we have other ideas, that if we were gonna do another bond, or if something like that was gonna happen. Then we could do new lot 2.0, sort of.
Yeah, but to Sarah's point, and please, again, please, there were significant discussions on the building. And our priorities. And this is next on the list. I'm certainly sensitive to the communications plan and making sure that the communications committee is communicating. You know, with the board and having board input, and Michelle, you know, made that point a few meetings ago. Making sure that the communications committee is bringing that plan to the board, but I believe that. Again, going back historically, this is next on the list to address, and then at last month's meeting. Again, there was consensus on this process. But. I hear your concerns, please.
Okay, so I would say at the last meeting, there was a majority.
Okay.
Because at the last meeting, I would, maybe, there are people that feel very strongly there needs to be a plan in place. I'm not one of them. And the process, I do wonder if, once again, we're kind of stepping out of our lane. I really think the director and the staff should be determining what happens with this space. I'm not so sure the board that should be focusing on governance and being trustees of the money involved really has a say in what happens to the actual space. So that's my concern still, my continuing concern for this process.
Understood, and you did express those at the prior meeting, so you're right, majority is probably a better word. Okay, so
Can I say so? I mean, because I feel like somebody has to drive the show though, like, and we're the ones that are sort of driving the train or whatever. And so I thought that this process was to like get that input. Like, we're gonna come up with some ideas, we're asking other people to come up with them too. We're hoping that this time more people in the public will weigh in. I think we're hoping that the library staff will weigh in. But like, it has to start someplace. So I guess I thought that's what we were doing, was just giving like a structure to get us started.
So from my perspective, what I've got, I am very pleased. What I have is a very clear vote from the board that the house is coming down this year. And, that end of that process is a field with grass in it. Okay, so that's what I know. I'm very confident that we have that. It's unanimous from the board. So that's the process that I'm still working on. I had hoped to have that proposal for that from the architect here with me today. It will definitely be here at the February board meeting. And the conversations with our attorneys about, well, what's the process for this? What do we need to get in place? That's all running along the background. I'm sorry if I haven't communicated that well enough to everybody. So that process is moving along. I think it's a timely discussion a little bit, if there's gonna be something else besides a grass field, which is what we did the last time we did this in the 53 and 51 houses. They were grassed in, and they were sort of gifts to a future board, which then became a parking lot. So it's great. Good use of those two properties. So that's what I have, but there are some of the uses, some of the potential uses of the property might need a little tiny bit of infrastructure. Electricity, might need some other kind of infrastructure. And so I'm, part of the proposal, my conversation with the architect, are you gonna need electricity there? Is a question that is super simple to deal with now, and it might be super complicated in 9 months to deal. So I don't mind this conversation. I think I would imagine that as the concept coalesces, that then there's going to be a lot of very practical decisions about zoning board of appeals, depending on what is being constructed or not constructed, how we interact with the town and the school district. This particular piece of property is an odd one. So there's going to be a lot of details to work through with this. But we're not there. Right now, what I've got is it all comes out. I got a grassy field, but if there is an idea, if there's a consensus among the board, a conversation with the public, I would need to know that at some point here relatively soon, so that we can make sure we're steering that process.
I just want to apologize. It looks like I'm handling my phone. My pump is talking to me, and my pump is controlled through my phone.
No
I should be disrespectful.
No worries. So I,
But we can go ahead. Just wanted to voice my concern. So the majority wanted to go ahead with it. We should go ahead with it.
well, to Jeff's point, I think I want to emphasize in framing this is a continued discussion. I think we're trying to keep the discussion moving, and a narrowing of where the discussion is moving. So I want to be clear that nothing tonight in this discussion is dispositive, nothing is final. This is moving toward bringing a structured discussion to a larger group. But before we move on, I want to make sure that there is either a majority or a consensus of the board that we should have this discussion tonight. So is there a consensus or a majority of the board, or would anyone like to put anything to a vote?
I'm not sure I understood the question.
I
We decided we were gonna be talking about this.
we did, but then
I think we should still talk about
Okay,
it
then
unless
that-
somebody is,
okay.
doesn't want to.
Just want to make sure that didn't come to death. Okay, so I'm hoping we can structure this so that everyone has a chance, and so that we can do this in a way that, like I said, I hope consolidates and views overlap, is we can go around the room. And I'm hoping that everyone will present one or two of their favorite ideas for the board, for the use of the green space. We will write them here. And then I think we can move the conversation into, like I said, where there's overlap, if there's two people who want a food fridge, easy. Or perhaps there are ideas that are structurally or similar that can be combined into one overall idea. And then the last part of the discussion tonight is, to Jeff's point, is to, once we have a list, what kind of additional information do we need on each idea to bring to the next meeting to continue to move the discussion forward? Does that work for everyone? Okay, then who would like,
One last thing. I did, because you had asked people to send in ideas and pictures. I do have a PowerPoint where I gathered those pictures together. So if someone has I don't want to step on anybody's idea. I don't want to ruin the surprise. So I have that. It's there. It's queued up. Let me know. I can bring it up. And if someone says I don't know quite what that is, we can go down to those pictures, and I've got them collected together on PowerPoint for you.
Me, start with me.
Thank you. Thank you for volunteering, Sarah.
Will you share my picture?
I will share.
So while he's teeing it up, I had suggested a labyrinth before, so that was what I'm bringing to here. And I've seen different types of things. So like the larger picture is just like flat sort of cement on the ground and you follow it around. I've been somewhere that had that, like a maze kind of thing that's fun. I feel like the one with like the sand and the rocks is a little bit more like Zen, like type of garden. And then I don't know if anyone else has ever taken their kids to the crossings at Colony, but they have a hedge maze there next to the playground. And when my kids were little, like running around in the maze and playing and like hide and go seek was absolutely one of their favorite things to do. So I know hedge maze, you think like Hampton Court Palace, but there is like another local park that has a small hedge maze that for kids is really fun. So. And it could be any iteration.
Who would like to go next?
I'll go next. I sent a few pictures, just like, and I have an addendum to that. So I think the space should be for the public in kind of a Zen type space, whatever, and I had some pictures about some benches that are like, library books and stuff, kind of cool benches. And then some artwork, and then I also think the space should have a,
Wait, let's just wait till we get to your picture.
I-
Yeah, I'm like,
Get it?
I've seen every idea.
It's 3.
There we go. Sorry, again, my eyes are trying to, it's too far across the room for my old eyes. Okay,
So
there
you
you go.
see, these are library bench type things, so I had
Oh, that's pretty.
the book one, and then the typewriter one, which I thought was really, I saw that last night, or a couple nights ago, that was really cool. So the different pieces of that, so I think there should be a place for people to read, contemplate, like a restful type space, probably in the back, probably not towards the street, probably in the back. I also do think, though, that we should take this opportunity to have a place and for book storage for the friends. It's out that, clearly they're an integral part of the library, and it's always an issue trying to figure that out, so that may require electricity and lighting and that type of thing too, so I think, it doesn't have to be huge, obviously, but I think that there should be a good book storage collection places for the friends.
There's some tiny pictures of
Yeah.
little tiny houses or tiny structures. That-
Sort of adorable.
Better than that.
Today,
What?
I was doing some research today, it's on the same thing.
Yeah.
So I'll go next, just because mine's exactly the same.
Okay.
Storage for the friends, and then I would have suggested, prepping the area for. In case in the future you would need plumbing or electricity or anything like that. So that would be an additional cost to prep the area in that respect. But, and then the only other thing I thought I had heard mentioned before by Jeff, I think, was an awning. So basically book storage for the friends and program space,
Okay, so
an awning for programs,
Do you
yeah.
mean more like that up on the screen, one of those two kind of things? Like
Well,
this and this?
that's not an awning.
Or
But
like this. Oh, yeah, I have a couple choices, or like that. So,
those are like umbrellas, but I mean, I guess I was thinking, the
Awning-ish.
first of all, I don't care.
yeah, okay.
It was just for protecting a
Yes.
program in the rain.
Yeah.
But I was thinking that kind that comes out of the building.
Oh, cool. All right, awesome.
Like this, I didn't have time to send them to you, but I.
That's a pergola.
Pergola, shade, umbrella.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Pavilion. There's seating underneath it.
Thank you. I like to see grassy green space because I think that we need to move the handicap entrance to the library. And I think this property can help to make that happen. I think the walk from the parking lot where the handicap spots are into the library, into the circ desk is ridiculous. It's just absurd for anybody. And there is a door back there and I would like to see. That's why I was talking about, I'd like to see the property looked at in terms of enhancing that area for those people who have disabilities. So, a garden, something that can be easily plowed under, I would be fine. These structures, unless they can be moved, I would really not feel comfortable with, although I will say that Voorheesville got small sheds and they open them up for book sales, ongoing book sales. From May until September, and they do quite well raising money for that. So if I was gonna go for one, that's probably I would go for the book storage if there was something like that.
So Gail, what would you like me to write down for you? Would you like me to write that you'd like to keep the space reserved?
I'd like to keep the space green and grassy.
Okay, so
Reserved with the idea of possibly using it to create a better handicap access.
Green space, not necessarily with a portfolio, right? Just like kind of just a.
So really think in terms of activity for kids particularly, you need to think about how big the public is.
Yeah.
And whether you're gonna have to end up putting up a fence so that somebody doing something that has to do with kids is protected.
Start with the garden, so it, you know, it seems to me like most everyone liked garden of some sort, but we were kind of all over the place. So I just feel like that's a place where the public input would be really helpful. The key for me, I think, is something that allows for community partnership, volunteers, and educational programming. So like, I love the idea of a community garden. Now, I don't know if there's enough space for a community garden, but maybe there's like a demonstration garden. I think that was one of the other pictures. I don't know. I sent you a lot of pictures.
I got a lot of pictures.
I didn't know they were all gonna end up like this.
Yeah, there's
I
no
wasn't
idea.
trying to hog. I just, I got creative. I had a wonderful meeting today that was very relevant, so there was some crossover. So something that can be both a demonstration, allow for community partnership and engagement on an ongoing basis, like not like a one and done, like regular volunteer, and that also allows space for the library and partners to use for educational programming, whether it's about gardening, the seed library, birding, I don't know. Things like that, that would be ideal for me. And then I thought no matter what we do, it seemed like we could incorporate sensory friendly things. So like movement, stenciling on the ground that allows for, encourages movement, or things like these outdoor instruments, I understand are really good for kids who are neurodivergent in particular. So that was one idea. The other one I will continue to support is the community fridge and like little free library. I kind of see them together. A lot of places have them both together, free fridge, free library. The free pantries at Town Hall and St. Thomas, I think, have demonstrated that there is tremendous food insecurity in Bethlehem. We cannot keep it filled. There's so much demand for the food. At the same time, there's tremendous generosity. People are rallying to fill the pantries every other day. There's a call like, oh my gosh, there's not enough food. So I think there's tremendous demand, tremendous generosity, and again, a wonderful opportunity to build community, which we desperately need right now. We could engage the community in helping to design something, build something, and then help maintain and care for it. So I know we're only supposed to have like one or two, but I also support Storage for the Friends. I really feel like all those things can go together, work together, and none of them are like permanent, they can always be, adapted. If we wanted to build another entrance, for example, I feel like all those things are easily adapted in the future as things change.
So I'm sorry, Laura, did you say there were three things? I heard the
I
fridge,
told
the
you
community
of
garden.
some sort. Community fridge and library, and I support the Friends having a storage shed also.
Okay, that's what I did.
Yeah, okay.
Mine's gonna just overlap with everybody. Definitely was on the garden side of things, whether it's a native garden that's more interactive than maybe what you see at the town hall or just across the street, which is the local garden club, I think maintains that, but it's native and it invites pollinators, but you kind of look at it while you drive by or as you walk by or as you bike by, I guess. And here it'd be a little bit more hopefully enclosed. So totally into the reading, outdoor reading, quiet space, potential for programming out there. But the garden could be native, could be herbs, it could be could be both sensory, like you get me in an herb garden, I'm always touching things. A sensory garden, pollinator garden, we can spin it any way you want. And besides the town gardening group, there's the what do you call themselves? The Home Earth Alliance would be great. There's groups in town that we could collaborate with, planning parties, whether there's a walkway through it, a labyrinth next to it, reading benches near it, like it would just make it a beautiful
Yeah.
space that would be nice to spend time in. I don't think we want a playground necessarily, but walking paths and simple kind of layout might be nice. And then the only other thing I came across which sounded cool, but also sounds, it just sounds cool, is this farm to library program that the Southern Adirondack Library System does. I can pass this around or send it to you guys later. Super interesting. They say the program began in 2017 with one library, rescue food waste, share freshly gleaned food in a small library, Whole Food Desert. So of course, it's a different setting in the Adirondacks. Probably there are more food deserts than we have here. But the program grew so quickly that suddenly more gardening, you know, there's the community garden over at the town park. I'm sure people there have food that they could donate either for food fridge or fresh food gardening. So just that community aspect and recruiting groups to work to collaborate with just sounds lovely, but it also takes time and effort that somebody has to do.
Am I right in thinking that when we went to the Upper Hudson meeting 2 years ago, one of the Hudson libraries won an award for something similar to that, so we could reach out to them?
And I actually reached out to the library director at Schuylerville, because I know that they do it, and that's my former library. And so I got a ton of information. I mean, it's a wonderful program, and it takes very little staff work because of the partnerships, and it was grant funded. So there are, but they've spent, essentially no.
How would that be used in the space that we're talking about? I'm not visualizing, I know the program, but I understand the program, but how do you see it set in that space? What do you see in that space?
The food fridge.
These
is a
are
good
a bunch
idea.
of photos
Yeah.
of other fridges. Some of those are in the area. The one on the right there, I think that's the one. Might be the one at the food co-op. But these are just examples of libraries that you get. Usually you have, or sorry, not libraries, fridges. Usually have a shelter. You build a shelter around it to protect it from the elements. You have volunteers who come and fill it every week or help clean it out. And I mean, you can go see, if you have a chance, there's one right in Albany outside the Raddick Center, right on Grand Street there downtown. It's a wonderful organization locally called Free Food Fridge Albany that has these in all over Albany, Schenectady, and Troy.
Well, we are, I mean, it's beautiful, but we are right next door to the Bethlehem Food Pantry.
Not fresh food though. So this is the focus is fresh food. So and that's part of it is food, people are food insecure, because there's lots of access to
Packaged food.
non-perishable food, but having access to fresh fruits and vegetables, milk, and you get a box of brownie mix, but you don't have any eggs or milk to actually make it. So this is a way to get fresh food to people.
Sherry, did you have anything? I'll go. Going on the theme of, I think, the meeting, my proposal is a historical garden, which is an idea that I'm blatantly stealing from my visit to Fort Ticonderoga last year, which is that they have extensive gardens there, and every year they pick a year that the fort was in operation, and they grow the things that the individuals at the fort would have grown that year, and then they use them to develop recipes and offerings at the cafe there. So tagging on that, I think that the idea of a historical garden offers a lot of opportunities for programming and expansion and our partnership with the historical society. So, let's say you pick a year and you can do lots of things with that. You could do what people were eating that year. You could do recipes. You could do an herb garden. Therefore, you could do medicinal things. And I think that the trick to this would be being very expansive in the view. So let's say that you pick a year and, you can, let's say you pick a year and it can be, well, this is what this group of people was eating. This is maybe what the Native American population that was once here was eating. This is what people in this socioeconomic group or this cultural group would have been using the garden for. And, you know, I just think that there's a lot of opportunity to play with that. And I would also propose, I don't think we need a full green space for this, we just need maybe some garden boxes. A pilot program in which we do it for 1776 for this summer. In
Is that a
celebration.
show with the fourth grade curriculum as well as the historical association and also for some of the high school kids who are trying to do research papers.
Yes.
I immediately see three different kinds of connections there.
Yes, and again, I think especially with the 1776, I think that the key to making this work is taking a very expansive view of it. Is that, you know, gardening was different for those who were at home versus those who were soldiers versus those who were servants versus those who were slaves versus the Native Americans, and making sure to encompass those different points of view and I think this dovetails on the native plants and, you know, what was actually happening at that time.
Well, not just food, but think about it as medicine too.
Yeah, I think medicine would be great, and I think an herb garden, and I think that this lends itself to, again, future use. You could frame it different ways each season.
And
So-
goes with the seed.
And you can put it what you grow in the fridge.
Exactly. Exactly, I mean, like I said, it just creates more programming. You could do recipes, you could do historical stuff, you could do medicinal stuff, so.
What the heck is with all these kohlrabi? That's what I want to say. What's this?
Jeff, what is yours?
Okay, well, everybody's already mentioned mine, that's fine. My two things, I wanted to put some pictures in and Kristen, awful helpful here. About when we talk about a shed, it doesn't have to be a shed. I think there can be some style. The one on the left is obviously
Beautiful.
full and awesome,
Yeah.
but
Someone living on it?
exactly. But I just wanted, there's just a couple examples here of when we talk about storage space for the book collection for the Friends, I think it can be beautiful as well as, you know. And so I think for me, again, very practical standpoint, those were the ones who had to store the books. A place for that to happen would be great, as well as to have the tied in with that is the Better World Books bin over the opposite of beautiful, but a thing that it could be a space where that kind of activity happens on that property. And so that's one of my ideas. I think that's a good one. And then the other one was sort of a garden space. With some kind of, I like the awning, we've talked about a temporary tent, we had conversations with the architect all the way back when it was Paul Mays about being able to pound the sleeves into the ground that would accept the poles for a tent. So you could be ready to put, it would be very easy to put a tent up as opposed to trying to put a tent up, which can be very difficult. Having some covered space over there, the outdoor space of the library, the outdoor tables, if you come by in the summer, many of our tables, we keep adding tables because they're very popular. And people want to have access to a place where there is power and internet and some place to sit down. And I do think the shade is important, which is why I included a couple of different pictures, which I know many of us were sending all the same stuff, but I do like the idea. You know, our maintenance staff put together some shade sails out on the island this year, and I think that's an important element to have some kind of covered space, whether it's a more formal awning type space like that idea, or you know, a structure like this that could be a small a small structure space. A gazebo has been kicked around here for 20 years. People have been talking about a gazebo. So I don't know, we could have a 4-piece banjo band up there or something. So would that be very small town of us? So in any case, those were my two ideas.
Like Stars Hollow.
Yeah.
Okay, so it feels like a lot of us are kind of thinking in very similar zones. So in the interest of coming up with a list for what we want more information about, here, I'll spin this around. I'm gonna write, you guys look at this. So I think the first thing on the list is a garden overall, right? With some potential subcategories. And correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like we could use a garden as one thing one year, as one thing another year, We just have to figure out how we might want to do that. So, okay, so types of gardens. We had interactive. We had native. We had reading. It's harder to write on the whiteboard than I thought. And we had historical. What kind of garden am I missing?
Did you say interactive?
I did.
Sensory.
Sensory.
Interactive and sensory are kind of the same thing.
Okay.
Well, I meant more like sensory elements
Elements in.
into
Yeah.
whatever kind of.
Garden there is.
Yeah.
Oh, what about the labyrinth idea?
I'm gonna
Well, I
put,
mean, that the hedge.
Yeah, I feel like that's the interactive garden too, like
Okay.
that's what that
Would-
is. kind
do you
of,
think
right?
that's a standalone idea or do you think that's a subcategory of a garden idea?
I think it's a subcategory of a garden idea.
Okay.
Hedge mazes are so cool.
They are, obviously.
The only thing as a mom with the hedge maze so near that busy road, I'm just thinking, you can't see the other side of the hedge, maybe you can't see if your kid's in or if they've just run out. I would be worried about the road.
That is, I mean, that is a concern, like the one in the parking colony is well into the
Right,
park, so
right.
there is nowhere that.
There should be the hedge maze
Fence
out in the other side of the line.
or a single entrance exit, both on the building side, for
If
example.
you have a 2-year-old that's running through a maze.
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah,
you
it
know,
does, like, the one in Colony has one entrance and it's in the front, so hopefully kids get funneled back to you, but yes, they can duck down and yeah, the ones are wildly,
Make it short.
yeah.
It's a full height maze for a kid. You
Right,
can look at them all.
I mean, or it could be like, if it's more like an interactive pathway, maybe there's like some kind of maze or path to follow on the pathway.
Would you say that the farm to library and the food fridge are a combined idea, or do you think those are two standalone ideas?
No, it's
they
the
could be
same idea.
combined.
And while you're writing, like I've been to, I'm just gonna bring it all together. I've been to a place a couple of times with my kids that has like, it's like a hedge maze, sort of. It's not as thick as that. And then it has the musical instruments like scattered around it. So like when you come to like the end, like a dead end, there'll be like one of those xylophone things to play. And then you come to a different dead end and there's a different instrument. Too much for us all in one, but maybe if we did decide to do like interactive, we could place those kind of things like all around the whole lot, not just in the new part.
And these instruments, from what I understand, they're not like super noisy, loud or anything.
No,
It's-
they're sometimes just.
It's just a
with
low
snare.
tone, it's a
Yeah.
low tone.
So we're doing the Norman scale.
Yeah, yeah, Mohawk Hudson, some of their properties have them along the way, and my kids always want to go to the one that have the instruments, so we did.
Jeff and Michelle. Not Jeff, sorry, Mark and Michelle. Mark, is it fair to put yours down as a reading space, as a Zen space? What would you like us to,
Reading space.
a reading space?
Yeah.
And then Michelle,
It could
yours
be
was
part of
a
it.
covered program
It's
space?
Yeah, I mean, basically, in my mind, I was like, green space that Jeff can use for whatever.
Okay,
And I think the reading kind of like could happen,
Or-
like whatever is select, like whatever garden can have that reading, should have.
You should have places for people to read in the garden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not exclusive.
I'm gonna call yours covered flex space.
Well, yeah, and just to clarify, like, I'm not crazy, right? Didn't we have a conversation one time about an awning that like retracted into the building? For the
side,
yeah.
Yeah,
For the
yes.
the curbside.
So
Well-
that's what I was thinking,
Well,
not a
two-
permanent structure.
Things, because we talked about one with curbside, but the other one, and I think it's the one you're talking about, was we had talked about reversing the evening under the green, the stage. And there was gonna be a stage and that would have a retractable awning that would go out over the public.
Right.
To cover, because in the summer, when we do evenings on the green, it can get hot out there. The band is under a cover, but the public is exposed. But then they were like, oh, you're gonna kill the grass if you leave it out all the time. So it was about having you've seen them they either have sails that go out and cover the public or having an awning that goes out.
So
you're
are
100%.
you saying then we wouldn't need it for this space because you would always have the evenings on the green over here?
Evening on the Green, I believe, would stay over there because this place isn't big enough, but I am a full proponent of some sort of shade
Yeah.
space out there, because I think that is very important, whether it's the temporary tent that we can put up and take down for some small program, if it comes out from the building, because we'll have access to that little corner of the building, which right now is just outside my office, a little walkway. Or some kind of covered space. That's why I put the more permanent structure, a temporary structure. I just like some shade out there because it's blasting.
Can we add something to this that's not and related to the space? I think some of the garden addresses what I was saying, but I just wonder if you could make like a parking list about audience. Because some of these things are particularly towards children, and what children are we talking about? Middle school children, elementary school children, or some of these things are more universal for who would be using it. Just put a note on the
Okay.
bottom that we should think about the audience
Okay,
that we're trying to build for.
so I would say, and I'd say a garden is a universal audience.
Well, you know,
Where we can go-
each thing, you can just do a note, so as we go through it.
This is probably a C. For children, interactive, adults.
I mean, adults would, teaching people how to grow their own food. I mean, I don't think that has to be just children.
No,
See children, I'm sorry.
no, so what do,
Just want to say, are you just saying keep in mind?
Keep in mind
the
this
park
part
I
of the park. So as we're gonna call this list down a little bit more, or
well,
we'll fill it out a little bit more.
so I think, and just to kind of focus us for what we want to get done for today. Is this seems to be our list, so, and please, let's just go over the list, is that we have. A variety, we have gardens used in a variety of different ways, or a garden used in a variety of different ways. We have, as a standalone, storage space for the friends. A food fridge or a farm to library that includes a farm to library program. We have a reading space. We have a covered flex, what I call the flex space, program space, and then to reserve the space for future use. So again, for purposes of driving the discussion forward, I think our next step is to look at this list and say, okay, what additional information do we need for our next meeting to hopefully create a list of what we would like to present to the public, not having to communicate full communication strategy on that, but just these are the bullets that we want to communicate to the public. So let's start with the garden for what we think we need for additional information there. I think that we probably need for lack of a better term, we need dimensions of the space and how it could potentially, how it could potentially be divided up, or what kind of space is needed for the gardens that we're talking about. So I think we need, is that a map of the space? What is the phrase for that?
Well, dimensions was.
Dimensions of the property. And we need, what are the dimensions that we need for different types of gardens to make them useful for the purposes that we're talking about them? Dimensional need by use.
Again, I feel like some of these, like, again, like a covered flex space could potentially be integrated into a garden
Agreed.
space and the reading space.
Yeah.
So if.
Yeah, so I think
As long as
that's,
we don't lose that idea that like it can all be a designer,
yes,
a professional, not, no offense to any of us here, could take these things. I mean, I saw in Googling, I just saw some like recent live, I think I shared that article, like, wow, like that just was beautiful, like having someone who could create a space that integrated these things in a way that was, seamless and accessible.
ChatGPT. They have back and forth with design because they're both in places that they're designing and they do chat.
Professional designers. I'm just laughing because.
so I think, Laura, you are absolutely right, I think that comes. I think at the next meeting, where we say, okay, once we have an idea, because I think what we need to find out is, okay, to have an effective interactive garden, do we need the full space? Or do we need half of the space, or what portion of the space do we really need to make something effective?
Right.
And then we can decide, and once we have that information, we can say, well, you know what, well, we can probably throw a bench in there, or a series of benches, and then we go from there. So I think we need the dimensions of the property. And then we need to get some information, likely from other libraries, like from articles, about what is needed to make this. And I think the big one there is a labyrinth, is how big of a space can we have an effective labyrinth with? Or how small of a space,
Who
really?
knows? I mean, I do like the hedge maze aspect of it, but like. You can, like I said, the one thing is just on the ground, right? So
Right.
it could just be if we had the building for the Friends in the center of the space, and on the back of that building, there was a cubby for the fridge. And then radiating out from it, there was like 4 paths, and each of those paths could meander with a maze painted on each of them that was different on it. And then in the green space in between, there could be this garden, that garden, and the other garden. Like, I think it can all connect together.
I think you just did it there.
Go. I do think we need to find out what is, again, what is necessary, what level of space is necessary for storage space, if the Friends were going to do something like that. So Jeff, I think we need to look at libraries of similar size that have storage spaces like the ones that we looked at. What is the footprint?
I also think we should look at audience. Who is it we're trying to get to use the space?
Well, I would think it's everybody, right? Like, we want to offer elements that speak to, like, if we were gonna paint mazes on the sidewalk, that would speak to the children, but maybe the garden part of it would speak to the adults that are interested in looking at the herbs.
It's a checklist to keep it in mind.
Especially if somebody's imagining a quiet reading space and then we've got a place where kids are
Kids,
playing,
yeah.
that might be in time.
And I agree, I think all of that is part of the discussion, but again, to kind of just silo the discussion into steps. Is I think right now, we are looking at brass tacks. What do we have room for? What room do we need for something? I think your point is well taken,
Yeah.
that then I think audience becomes another part of the discussion.
We should put the maze by the performance area. There's still all that space.
The storage space for Friends, they're gonna be so thrilled that we're promoting this as a top idea. But does it need to be near the building for electricity, plumbing, heat? Or could it be by the road and almost be blocking kids from?
Well, so I think that's a good point. So we need the footprint, the actual, how big does it need to be? We need, is there a necessary placement? Does it, if we were to do a storage space, does that have to, is that non-negotiable that it has to be in this part of the space? And then I think
We need
it's,
a soil sample.
We have one.
we have one.
You have one? Is
Yeah.
that- is
The
it for-
awning could come off of that.
Yeah, there's a lot of work that we did as part of the building project where we had the whole geotechnical survey of.
Is it sandy? Do you know?
It's absolutely, it is a very interesting,
Sand.
it's all the same. So it's a bunch of beach sediment from Glacial Lake Albany.
Yeah.
And then varying back and forth bands of just like real gloppy mud silt. It's gross. And then a little bit more sand as the Glacial Lake Albany, we were on either the beach or the bottom of Glacial Lake Albany at
So we
various
need
times.
to tell you what we're gonna,
There for you.
we're gonna need to figure out.
What were
if
they
we
growing
need to
in?
Buy manure or fertilizer or topsoil or what? We haven't said.
Okay, I think there's that, there's like, I think that goes to placement and what is needed there, and then I think what I'll say is infrastructure. Do we need heat? Do we need cooling? Do we need electric? What do we need for that? And I think that those items are the same for the food fridge, will that have to go on a specific portion of the property?
Fridges typically, they're on the sidewalk. I mean, I've never seen them. They need to be as accessible to the public as possible.
possible.
Right, I'm sorry. I will, just to be clear, the farm to library program. As far as I could tell, all of those fridges are inside, just to be clear, that those particular ones are indoors. In like in the lobby or something, but those were pictures of community fridges that are obviously not safe.
Okay, then I think the question is then, okay, I think that it's still the question of where does it go and where could we run electricity
Right, the
for
electricity
it? What is, and in kind of the infrastructure of that. And again, I think the footprint is something we could probably find out from those libraries. It's obviously that it's
small.
fairly small, but I think we still want to know that as we want to maximize the property.
Okay, the Friend Shed at Voorheesville, they have electricity? But they don't have heat or water.
No.
Yeah.
No, they have electricity, they have 2 sheds.
Yeah.
That are full all the time,
Yes.
and they open them up once a week during this, from May until, and I think that's where they pull in about $8,000 or $9,000 over the course of the summer.
That's the one in Voorheesville.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shopped in.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think we need, kind of going to the idea of integration, we probably don't need additional information on reading space. Other than, you know, I think we know that we can get benches, we know that we can get the accoutrements that go with that. I think that would be integrated, but to Michelle's covered flex space. I think that we do want to find out. You're thinking of a retractable.
I am not tied to any
I-
one type of shade.
So Jeff, let's look into, let's say, 3 different types of shade.
Yeah, the only,
Types of shade.
one of the complicating factors for many of these ideas is a garden, it's fine. Because the property is owned by the library and the school district, that changes the permitting process over there, and we have to explore that, and had a conversation about that earlier. If there's a structure, that then brings in the zoning board of appeals and all of that stuff. So you have to be aware of that. Some things that there's no structure, you know, I think knock the house down and you do whatever you want to with a piece of property. But just that's why I'm depending on the way the conversation goes, there might be further complications about what that is. So even one of the ones I proposed, else is proposing as well, some sort of storage for the friends, that might be one of the more complicated answers. So
Do you think that a shade thing, like an awning or the gazebo that we're talking about, that would not qualify as a structure?
well, especially as that property would then be a little bit integrated with the property that the library already owns, which is school district property, and therefore not subject to the zoning board of appeals. What, you know, if that shade element was attached to the library part, that's on the library part of that. So if an awning came out there, it would be, you know, right now we have a sidewalk that runs down that side of the building, the story walk is there. That's ours and therefore not subject to that, depends on the location. Right now, we're thinking of these things as separate, there's a fence, right? It's a separate piece of property. But if it wasn't separated, I mean, it would still be officially separated, but not, if it wasn't a physical separation, then you might include some of those elements closer to the library and then some of the more naturalistic elements closer to the street. But if we needed to have some sort of a structure to house a refrigerator that you want up on the street, then we have to just be aware. It's just, it's all, I think it's all surmountable. I'm not trying to throw any load box, it's just an awareness of some of these are super simple, super inexpensive. Some of them are, none of these are horrifically expensive. They might be a little bit more bureaucratic.
I would say that of 5, 3 of them. I mean, one of those 3 being reserved for future use, i.e. do nothing. Requires nothing.
Do nothing, make grass, I mean, make.
Yes, but I mean, reserved for future, those, I would say that then in order of. Potential complications, the food fridge would be. You know, have some additional considerations, and then I think. By far, the idea that has the most implications for other. For potential expenses, for potential logistical and. You know, roadblocks is the storage space.
Yeah.
The question that Jeff and I had, which is, I don't really want to discuss it, was if we are a local miscellaneous government, if we are our own government, what permissions we need to do what? That was the conversation that Jeff referred to
Yes.
earlier, because we're our own, we're not part of the town and we're not part of the district, so.
And I think we have some idea of that
Some
based
idea
on
of
our
that.
previous work. But
It's, you know, I think if the
I'm sharing it so you'll know what we talked.
if the library property had always been owned by the library, not the school district, this relationship with the town would have been explored throughout the years, but because the property, as long as we've been here, it's always been owned by the school district. Everything has always gone through the school district process because the property's been owned by the school district since the early seventies. So, it just.
Just need some
Need
clarification.
some
And that's not
clarification.
for a big discussion, which is I wanted to, he mentioned that we had talked and that's what we talked about.
okay, so really, we have five big ideas going in. A garden of some kind. We have a variety of ideas for garden. We are going to look in the general dimensions of the property for all of these, but also what size garden or gardens do we need to make them worth their ideas. We have storage space for the friends. We have a food fridge / farm to library program. We have really what we're calling event space or shaded space. And then we have reserved for future use, meaning that we just make it grass and leave it as is. We are not leaving out your idea, but do we agree that reading space can be, do we think that that needs to be a standalone idea or that that can be integrated into any of these other ideas?
I think it's integrated.
Well, I was just wondering, because I don't see here, because I know Jeff mentioned tables and how you're always having requests for more
Right.
tables. And maybe you're thinking that would go in a garden?
I could put tables there, so in my brain, thank you, Michelle, in my brain, if we get reserved for future space, let's say, right now, we move forward and it is literally a grassy field. I can easily throw a bunch of picnic tables with umbrellas over there, I mean, I could do that within the budget this year, I could have that done.
But if that's what we know is actually needed, perhaps that should be on the list.
Do we think we can add that into flex space?
Sure.
Or we just all heard it.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we know what we need to get for additional information. So then I think for the next meeting, I mean, we're pretty much down to 5 kind of ideas. I think for the next meeting, we put forth that information and whether any of it really affects what we're doing. We might find out that we can't really have this is unlikely, I think, but that we need much more space for a garden than we would have thought. Really, we get a garden and one other thing. Or we need much more space for a friend's book house and we get that and basically one other thing. So I think that by the next meeting, we have a sense of how many of these are feasible. Or if we do, let's say, or if we decide on one, that determines, that lessens the amount, or if we decide not to do that one, that means we can have the 4 other things. So how many? And then whether there is anything before we bring the public into the discussion, whether there is anything that the board wants to say, we are doing this. Kind of going to your point, Michelle, and a little bit of your point, Gail, which is that we are using reserves for this. We are not asking the public for additional money. Is there anything that as a board?
Building is not safe. That in terms of choices, the building is not safe. And we need to be really clear.
As a way of saying that's why we're taking it down.
As a really strong reason, because that's the truth, is my understanding before I was on the board is that people looked at the building and had it looked at to become a useful part of library services, and the answer was the building needs to be demolished. It is not a safe building, and I think we need to tell people.
I think there's some nuance there.
I'm not saying
I
I
just
just say
don't-
it that way.
I wanted, is that the building is not a current hazard to the neighborhood, it is still standing. But it is the cost to make it useful to library services is extremely prohibitive. Because of the remediation that would have to be done to parts of the building. It is not safe as it is for library services.
Or to make it accessible.
Yes.
The ADA require that.
However you put it, I just think that's really a big driver of this, because no matter what we try to do here, we are gonna get some pushback.
Yep.
In my personal opinion. And so I think we need to be upfront that if the building were useful or could be used, we would
We would.
salvage it.
We've had multiple architects look at it with exactly that in mind, and it's right in the original Paul May report. It's just not suitable for library purposes.
So then we should pull it out of the hallways as a quote. I don't care how you do it, I'm just saying that needs to be a part of the message.
Absolutely. I think that's I think that's the next messaging kind of challenge. But I think going back to at the next meeting, is there anything that the board wants to decide as a board that this is, yes, absolutely something that we want to do with this property? And that can be any one of these things. That can be, we can decide as a board, we want to reserve it. In which case that would, probably take, remove the need for public meetings, but let's say that we decided we wanted to pose to the friends that this is an opportunity for them to have storage space. That is not something that we're going to put up for public public input. We're gonna say, we're gonna do this, you guys can choose, and we would like your input on 2 other things. So think about that toward the next meeting. And then I think once we have that list of if we're absolutely doing anything, then we have a list of what we would like to put to the public for some input on what they would like. And then I think from there, we develop a communication strategy toward a public meeting in the early spring.
So maybe this is what Gail initially was saying, maybe not, I don't know, Fred right now. But when we say we're bringing it to the public, are we including the library staff as part of the public? Or like what I heard Gail saying initially is like, this is part of the library building writ large. And so like, when are we asking for their feedback? Are they just part of the public?
Would you like to weigh in on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've already begun some of those conversations. I don't do any of this in a vacuum, but I think an opportunity formally for the staff at large, we did that during the building project. I think that would be welcome. Not likely to be good to have it coincide with the one from the public because their needs and views, I think, are different enough on this. But I do think that's worth just casting a wide net. We can do it virtually, but we can also, do it virtually. They can think about it and have an opportunity to come and talk with me about that. No problem.
I would say that something like that, because we can do that during the workday, right?
Yeah, easy.
So I would say something like that, probably in between the February meeting and a plan to put forth ideas to communicate this to the public in a formal session.
Wait, shouldn't we know? I chose now to put a mitt in my mouth. Shouldn't we know what the staff priorities are before the February meeting?
Sure.
I mean, I just think they're the ones that it's like, if it turns out that having a freestanding building to put the books in just doesn't work, because you have to load it onto the H carts and roll the H carts through the snow, and that's just never gonna happen. Like stuff that we wouldn't think about, but that they might, like, I feel like we need their input sooner
I
rather than
think
later.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and speak for many of the staff here because I've talked to lots of them about this. Any opportunity for there to be some storage space for books for the friends would be highly welcome by many of the staff because they're the ones who have to move around those books in the hallway as it is. So I don't want to speak for them, and they may have other ideas that are wildly different than any of these, and I would like to harvest those. But I have done a lot of talking about this, and I try to not inject my ideas because I want to hear the ideas rather than say, well, this is what Jeff thinks. So you've heard what I think, you've heard what a couple of other folks think, but I would like to try to harvest those ideas, and I'll get that.
So Boysville, the book sheds, oh, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, the 2 things I've heard tonight that are clear needs are storage space for the friends. The friends want it. Sounds like library staff would love to not have those piles in their way. And more tables and outdoor space for sitting, studying, reading, whatever. So those seem like obvious first priorities to me. But I would love to know from staff, programming space, outdoor programming space, how, would they need coverage, would they need fencing, would they need chairs, would they need movable stools? Those kind of things, I don't know how to
Yeah.
decide,
I'll talk to them.
that's all.
So then, Jeff, do you think we can get their
They
input?
don't accept donations in the winter. They close the sheds up.
Yes.
And people are told that donations are not gonna be accepted in the winter. Then when the snow melts, they start accepting donations again.
So then Jeff will work with the staff to gather their ideas and get their input, both of this list and independent of this list, prior to the February 16th board meeting.
I think it's the ninth instead of.
Sorry,
It's early.
February 9th, sorry, I was looking at
Yeah,
the
the
wrong
answer
date.
is yes. Yeah.
That's the Friends meeting, everyone. The next board meeting is the 9th. So really, but we have
Yeah,
time.
okay, no problem,
Okay.
no problem.
Um,
I mean, it's not that this isn't a vacuum. The staff know about this. We talk about this.
Yes.
It's here. This is the thing that they talk about separately from me. They talk with me. There's a lot of conversation about this. So I'll put that call out and I'll say, come back to me virtually. We'll do it at a staff meeting as well. So not a problem.
hey, guys. Everyone here likes gardens.
Yeah,
I like that.
I mean, it's outdoor space.
Yeah.
It's gotta be garden, even if it's just garden boxes next to the benches, so.
I know, and it's really great to think about all the things that you can do with a garden.
Well, who would plant the garden?
It's gonna be the maintenance staff. And volunteers, there are, we have some volunteers.
So it wouldn't be library staff.
It's gonna be library staff. I mean, of course, you can't.
Oh, so it would create more work for library
But-
staff.
but-
I'm less inclined to.
I think there's
Actually, I
programming.
don't think that should be the assumption.
There's
My
programming
assumption
opportunities.
is
We've done-
This is a chance.
I hear you and I don't want to step one.
Partnership.
It's fine. We have done partnerships with everybody. We did it in 2003. We had all sorts of gardens with people. In the end, yes, we love working with Progress Club garden volunteers. Thank you. You guys are awesome. You've done great work. There is no way that ultimately much of that work doesn't come back to the staff. It's not possible for that not to be the case. We've worked with the different groups. We've had many different groups with Peony Garden, with the Progress Club Garden. But ultimately.
Yep.
There's work that has to be done and it's done. by-
Michelle, that's a good thing to start thinking about. I think one, there's a lot of programming opportunities there. There's a lot of programming, kids doing things, teenagers doing things. And if I recall correctly, every spring and summer, we are inundated with Bethlehem High School students who need service hours.
Yes,
So there's opportunities there. I think we look at opportunities to, again, for community collaboration, to bring in groups who want to participate. So I think that's a good think ahead moment that what Jeff says, I'm sure is true, is that things always come back to the staff in some form.
Yeah.
But if
Not
there's
bad.
programming opportunities there, that's not necessarily bad, but also, again, to think ahead of how we can involve the community in a space or in some of these uses.
And that a garden is only good in the growing season,
Yes.
I wonder what the
in like 7 months of winter.
I think everything would become a flex space in the winter.
right.
And the food fridge, who would take out the rotten eggs and
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely talk about that. I mean, like, there's families in our town who volunteer to fill a fridge every single week and you clean it. I mean, that's what my family did on Thanksgiving. We went to a fridge, we cleaned the entire fridge, got rid of everything that was bad, and then filled it with food. So
your idea is that it'll be volunteers.
it requires, it requires people, and I think that can be something that we ask people, like, is this something that you would be willing to help with? So it does require people, but I think it's an opportunity, and 2003 was a very long time ago now. It's like over 20 years ago, so things change and people change, and I think.
Well, so personally, I feel like keeping the food fridge stocked would be fairly easy, and even if it's not visible. My experience with the Ellesmere Garden tells me that like people go in waves and like, yes, we're gonna get this group together and we're gonna have the Ellesmere Garden and it's gonna be great and the students will work in it and they'll have food for the cafeteria. And sometimes that works, but the other 50% of the time it's an overgrown rat's nest that looks terrible. Now, it's okay there because it's not in a location anybody sees, it's tucked away, and when we have those times where no one's doing it, whatever. But I just think it's something that we want to consider, that if we're putting this on our like main exterior spot that people see and drive by, that it does get maintained like all of the time.
I
not
don't
just
think that
sometimes.
the maintenance staff would allow that to not be the case. They're just not gonna put our good forward. Please don't mishear me. I am excited about having opportunities and other people to have volunteer opportunities at the library. I think some use for some of that energy that comes, but I do think the drumbeat of keeping it neat and tidy and good is well, as they
Which
do,
is
as they do
fine,
now.
and
I mean,
I'm
it's-
sure they will. I guess my thought more was like, we just don't wanna come up with something so complex that we think volunteers are gonna do and then end up burdening them with like some very hard and specific.
So I think in terms of input from staff, I think being blunt, be like, are you guys okay with doing some extra work in the garden?
Yeah, I'm good.
Something to ask.
They're gonna have some strong thoughts on that, not necessarily negative thoughts, they're because they've had this experience. I mean, look at we get compliments on the outside spaces of the library all the time. And again, our Progress Club volunteers have done a lot of work, both actual work and also planning work to make that the case. So you just look at the example of the gardens that we have around the library already, people really enjoy them.
Yeah.
But absolutely, the maintenance staff is key in keeping those.
Yes.
Looking at these.
My gut says that the library staff and I would be okay with a lot of this because it lends itself to a lot of other opportunities, but I think that it is important to ask.
Yeah, the sensory garden was proposed by one of the maintenance staff members in the past, and it wasn't ultimately able to move forward with it, but. There's been, I think it's not by any means all negative, it could be very positive.
Okay, guys, thank you for a very, very productive discussion. I'm excited by all potential possibilities. Okay, is there any other old business anyone wants to discuss?
I wanted to talk about the coffee hour, that you have scheduled in February. This is just a general comment. I'm hoping that maybe there'll be more discussion in the long range plan. I am the only board member who does not live in Delmar. And so when you do the coffee hour or these programs, you are simply looking at the people who live in Delmar and walk to the library. I'm sure people are aware of the debate that's going on in the school district because of the development and the building that's gone on in Glenmont. I'm sure you're aware that the people in Slingerlands who also pay for the library go to work down New Scotland Avenue and 85 and never come into Delmar. A lot of people are picking themselves up and going places, not just being in a physical building that basically brings people who live close for the most part to the building. And so I'm hoping as we move forward that you could start looking at the broader library community and ways to reach them. A coffee hour that's just in the library is just gonna hit the people who usually come to the library. It's not gonna hit the people in my neighborhood. It's not gonna hit the people in Somerset Woods. It's not gonna hit the people who live down to Scotland near where the toll gate is, because their use of the library is reflected in those remote statistics. So again, it's not for a big discussion. I'm hoping we'll talk about it more in the long range plan, but I think as we move forward about getting public input and talking to people, we need to be looking outside of Delmar.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, I don't know, I see that, but you may be right. I have no idea about that as far as like physical location. I mean, I think more so the bigger issue is that anything we do in the building is just going to bring in people that come to the building, whether they live in Delmar or Slingerlands or Glenmont. Like, I don't think their physical location in the community matters that much. Like, this is the issue that we've been talking about. When we do stuff, we're sort of talking to the echo chamber because these are the people that respond to things.
But everybody pays for them. And so to not reach out, to not pick yourself up and see if a PTA meeting will host some library board members to talk about the library in a non-bond referendum kind of way negates all those people who also pay and support the library. We serve everybody. We don't just serve the people who live in Del Mar.
I think we appreciate that point. I don't think that the cookies and conversation with the board is intended to be an informal gathering with the board. And I understand your point that we can get out there, to other parts of the town. But also that it makes sense to have this at the library, and I'll echo Sarah that I don't think that the only people who come to the library are the people who walk to the library. I think that there's a lot of people who come to the library from all over town.
If they have young children, that's possible, but you see, I just. That's fine, I won't discuss it anymore. I just think that there's a Del Mar point of view and it disrespects the rest of the school district in general, not
Okay.
talking about the library board, and that we need to be thinking about the people who are remote, and we need to be getting ourselves into more of those places. And if you guys in a majority don't agree with me, that's fine.
No,
Well, I
think
think
we
in the
need-
survey, I actually, we asked people and we looked at the responses. Based on, and this is why I was interested in this data, because I wanted to know, like, do people in Glenmont, like, how do they want us to communicate with them? Most of them, I mean, it's not a huge sample. Most of them said email. So, but we have, I think that this was part of that effort, is trying to understand, like, what do people want, and especially outside of the Del Mar hamlet, like, do people in Slingerlands and Glenmont want opportunities to connect with the board in the community? And it wasn't overwhelming. My hope is that we're saying, hey, this is something like special. We're inviting you to come to the library. We're having cookies. It's informal. It's not a board meeting where you have to suffer through. So my hope is that we're extending like an extra invitation for people to go out of their way maybe and come to the library.
Again, I said going forward. I said going forward.
yes, but
And-
sorry,
Go ahead.
no, my apologies.
So can I ask, like, what do you, like, so instead of having like the cookies and whatever it is thing here, are you thinking we need to like
I am
find a space in Glenmont so that we could host like an in-person event there? Is that what you're?
For years. I think that, we need to think about our business. We need to make our lens of business be broader than the physical building and the people who come into the building. And as we move forward, and hopefully in the long-range plan, we can talk about that more. Because what I hear, and this is not data, is, oh, I love the library. I used to go there when I was a kid. And what surveys show is that there's a lot of two-member working families. And I just think we need to be thinking broader. I think the people that you're gonna get at a coffee are going to be a very small group of people.
Well, I mean, I think that's true, but I don't know it's because where they live. I think it's just because of all the things you're saying, that they're busy or that they don't utilize the library, period, or I think it's a broader issue.
And we do a lot of work with outreach. We have
Yeah,
so
I
many
know.
outreach programs, and those are relatively new. Just from my time.
And this is, we decided not to do trustee office hours anymore. So we're trying something new. We're trying something different. If it turns.
took it as a personal attack on the coffee
No
hour.
one's taking
It's
it as a
not.
personal
I-
attack, and I do
it's
think it's
not.
unfair, I do think it's unfair to
It's
say
not.
that we don't think about people outside of Del Mar. I do think that's an unfair statement. I certainly. First, think very much about everyone in our community. I know we're that town boards, it's a criticism that all the town boards get. That we're too Del Mar centric, so I'm very sensitive to that, I don't think that's a fair statement, and I certainly don't think the staff think that way. The staff is always out at all the schools and in the community, so I think we try this. And then if you would like to volunteer to find a space in Glenmont, you know, that's like the kind of thing we need, I think we need that kind of those
I can do
ideas.
that on my own, but the communications committee can't do that. I think we need to stop this discussion because I am feeling like it's not productive. So let's move on.
Can I just say one thing? I'm not
Yeah,
on
I
the
don't want-
communications committee.
I would prefer not to hear it.
Oh, okay. It's just about outreach we already do, because you might not know.
So Gail, we hear your points. There is a long range planning committee meeting, the 30th. Is
The
that correct?
22nd.
End of the month.
Sorry, 22nd. I know the 30th was on the table. I just want to make clear to the public that the coffee and conversation that we are having on February 25th is for all members of the public. We hope that if you are available, that you will attend. So, but we hear your points moving forward, Gal. Okay, future business. We covered a lot of the budget update back in the financial presentation, but the budget is, so in addition to our Borthwick conversation next month, we will have the budget presentation, which we have to vote on by.
The March board meeting meets, had our conversation with the school district, so if we have our budget, draft budget accepted by the board. By our March board meeting, we meet all of the publication deadlines in order for that to go to the May vote, for them to be able to publish it and all of their requirements, school district, no problem.
Is there a finance committee meeting before that? Are we gonna see the budget?
Usually
Is the
that's-
finance committee gonna see the budget before the board meeting?
Yes,
Do we have a date for that?
no, I haven't even started working on the budget yet, okay? I'm gonna be starting this week. And probably sometime towards the end of January. Or maybe, you know, the first week of February, we'll have a finance committee meeting and I'll reach out for dates that are convenient for everybody. But I can't, you know, it doesn't make sense to have a finance committee meeting until I have something to show you. And as I said, I haven't even started yet.
And will we have estimates on demolition? Like, because I assume that will have to be included.
I mean, I have an estimate on demolition. It's a very, from CJ, from Schoolhouse, there's a very, very preliminary conversation back when the building committee had this conversation. I have a number. I think that number is going to be really quite high compared to what it will actually be
From CJ?
from CJ, yeah. And, doesn't want to get caught short, right? I mean, so that's the way boards can't have it, right? If it goes the other way, the estimate can't be the other way. So, so we have one, but I think it's high. And I think as we define that and we start working, I mean, yeah, I think we'll have that.
Thank you for your work on that, Sherry. And again, just to reiterate, both to the board and to the public, we do anticipate some increases in certain areas on that due to, I think, life.
Yeah,
you know,
I think
things-
this is gonna be a challenging budget year. We are looking at some increases in some key areas. And, you know, we'll know more once we try to pull everything together.
So, thank you very much.
I ask because I travel every week. So I wanna make sure I have the date on the calendar.
Yeah, I will, look at some dates that make sense and, I'll send them out to everybody on the finance committee so we can do it by Zoom.
Okay.
Did you say it might be the first week? Is that what you said?
Do the same thing.
Possibly, I'm gonna aim for the end of January.
I'll be gone President's Week.
Oh, that's after the board meeting, so
Okay.
it has to be before February.
Okay, never mind.
I mean, the latest would probably be like February 1st.
Thank you very much. Okay, any other future business? Do we have any public participation in the room?
Okay. I stay here or,
Wherever you'd like.
okay, and excuse my voice, which is not too good these days. I thought that just comments on the Borthwick discussion as I listened to it, I don't have this terribly well organized at the moment. I thought it was a useful discussion, although I thought that the discussion would have been better suited for a committee meeting rather than in this more formal setting. In terms of what you finally came up with a final list, I think that the ideas for a garden area and reading space, along with the removable awning, strike me as being of really the most appropriate use for the location. And I think that those are probably items that may gain widespread public support. I understand that storage space is needed for the Friends and for the library, and seems to be a high priority for you. My question is whether it needs to be on the Borthwick lot. Can it be placed elsewhere? Particularly something like a food fridge, I think, could be in this present building or in a structure elsewhere, other than on the Borthwick lot. It just seems inappropriate to me to try to put these kinds of, well, I'm going back to combining a couple ideas here, that's why I'm a little confused. Storage space is needed for the Friends and library. I question whether it needs to be in this particular area where it could be, or whether it could be somewhere else. The same also applies, concerns apply to the food to fridge area, food to farm to table area, sorry, farm to table and food fridge. They could perhaps be in the library or elsewhere. I'm less impressed with them as being appropriate for this particular location. I'm confused about the idea of space being reserved for future library use. It seems to me that the whole area is open for future library use, and I really don't know what this means. How much space is left over after you've reserved some space, and how does that affect your plans going forward? I think the board should make some decisions here and not decide based upon what you think is most important for the library and go ahead with those ideas. Okay, I'm almost done, Jeff. In terms of the public meeting, how are you going to be affected by public response? Is the public limited to commenting on the ideas that you are presenting to them, or are you open to alternate ideas coming forward? And I think that may be a concern. And also, what do you do if the public comes up with strong support for something that you as a board feel is not the most appropriate use? And I think you need to be able to bite the bullet on that. I strongly support the board and the actions you take. And we're the ones who are elected to represent the community. You should be making the decisions. Listen to what the community says, but you make the decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any public participation online? Oh, sorry, do we have any other, my apologies.
That's it.
Please go ahead.
I just had some, Bruce Phillips here. I just had some questions that emerged from here. How much space is available? Not how much is needed for any particular garden use. Well, how much space is available that we're talking about? And when I say that, I recognize that there's a potential ambiguity there, because if some space is controlled by the school district and some by the library, maybe we're not talking about one massive property, but several different properties that might be subject to different uses. So it's kind of a loaded question for which I apologize. The other question I have is, as I look, for example, at the gardens, I can see potential different users for different types of gardens. A sensory garden is going to attract one set of clientele or users. A butterfly garden could attract another. A historic garden, yet a third. And they might not be the same. It might be excluding people. So I'm just wondering, who are the potential users? Not the hopeful users, but the actual potential users of them. I question, not an answer. I apologize for not having any answer. I just want to throw that out. Complicate your day.
Thank you.
And I don't have anything electronic.
Okay, great. Unless there is anything else, I will take a motion to adjourn. Gail? Second?
Yeah, before we do that, can you send out an email about the upcoming meetings, to everyone, just so we're all on the same page, the calendar, and as January turns, there's all sorts of blood on the calendars.
There is,
Yeah.
but just there is a long range planning meeting,
Right.
planned toward the end of January.
Right,
There will be an upcoming finance committee meeting, TBD. And I would anticipate that the communications committee would meet after the next board meeting to discuss, based both on board discussion and then to
Yeah.
discuss communication strategy to then bring back to the board.
okay.
Yeah, we still have your motion to adjourn. Do we have a second? Laura, all those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone.